Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the 23rd century, I'll be your host, Commander Dave Trumbore. Quite literally joining me tonight because we've fused our joints together in order to make an unstoppable podcasting machine, my co-host, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going tonight, sir?
David. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, buddy.
I am excited
right
that
now.
I fused into your torso.
Yeah. It's a new experience.
This giant fighting robot.
Yeah, no, we're doing pretty good so far. We're
Yeah.
kicking ass. Now, there's only two of us, though. So, I mean, we can still...
that's...
Yeah.
Should I have... I guess... Ooh, this feels like I should have asked before we fused. Should I have fused into another part?
You should usually ask before you fuse. That's just common courtesy. Yeah. But, I mean, it's fine. You know... maybe in the future we'll get...
Well, you sound less enthusiastic about it than I want.
Well, I got your joints all up in my joints. I'm just struggling to breathe at this point.
Well, that's how fusion works.
Fusion? In the future, maybe we should ask for like 3 more people to join us, though, and make like a really good kick-ass podcasting machine robot. What do you think?
My God, that'd be great.
That would be great.
That'd be great.
Hey, from that little tease, listeners out there,
if they know what we're actually talking about, I'm blown away.
It could be like 12 different cartoons at this point, which is interesting. We'll actually talk about the history of it in a second, because it does tie in with a lot of other mecha anime. So we are, of course, obviously talking the mighty Orbots. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sean. He's going to fill you in on the history of this one, and we'll get into the details of that a little bit, have a little discussion on it.
So The Mighty Orbots is an American-Japanese super robot animated series created in joint collaboration between TMS Entertainment and Intermedia Entertainment in association with MGM and UATV. It was directed by veteran anime director, and I apologize if I get this name wrong.
If he's listening, we're sorry.
Yeah. Osamu Dezaki?
That sounds good.
And features characters designed by, again, I apologize, Akio Suguno.
Good enough.
Okay. The series aired from September 8th of 1984 to December 15th of 1984. It was on Saturday mornings in the U.S. on ABC, and then it was in Japan by Animax. There were a total of 13 episodes, and this is actually, this doesn't hit our syndication broadcast rule of the 65 episodes, but there is a very particular and interesting reason for the 13 episodes that we'll get into.
Yeah.
So, The Mighty Orbots was developed from an idea pitched by Fred Silverman, possibly in response to the popularity of all the robot-related properties that Hasbro and Sunbow both had, like Transformers, I think GoBots and some other things were in there. The original 6-minute pilot features a slightly different version of the Mighty Orbots, and it's called Brutes. Now, if you're confused by that, thinking that they are sort of hulking brutes, it's spelled B-R-O-O-T-S, but it's pronounced Brutes as if it's B-R-U-T-E-S.
Hey, Sean, why is it spelled so weird?
Because essentially everything for Orbots and Brutes is just rearranging the letters of the word robot into some other form to make it palatable. So that this show just wasn't called Robots. And you were like, look, they put 0 time into coming up with
the
this.
Mighty Robots
they're
would have
not
been just as good as Orbots.
And they're not even trying at that point. So the series lasted for a single season of 13 episodes. And this is what's so great about this, is that the reason the show ended is mostly due to a lawsuit between the show's creator and toy maker Tonka, who accused them of basing their cartoon off of their GoBots franchise. The robots depicted in the show were virtually identical to the robots in the anime for Bandai Gomar toys. Although the colors were slightly changed.
Yeah, and I had to look this one up. So a few different names for this Japanese anime. Godmars, I think, was the name of it that people kind of called it, but it had a bunch of different names. So I'm not even going to try to butcher my way through the Japanese, but 6-God Combination Godmars was the English translation of this anime, which sounds amazing. I think we need to put this on the list immediately.
Which it really does. If you've seen... So long story short, we have these 5 Orbots that do combine into one big machine. And if you've seen what that looks like in comparison to the 6-god combination God Mars, it's pretty close.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so for any of these kind of like combination bot things where you have 5 separate ones or 6 separate ones or whatever, and they all kind of combine, it's usually one that forms like the head and torso, and then 2 of them form the arms, 2 of them form the legs. Obviously, the most famous one is, I'd say Voltron. I'd say it's probably Voltron.
I would
argue?
too.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would agree with you. Now, do you mean Voltron, or do you mean, does it go by its original super robot name of Beast King Go Lion?
Beast King Go Lion. And I love the history of this because, I don't know, I don't have all the details in front of me, but it sounded like the American production companies got a hold of a couple of the Japanese series, and then they just cut a couple different ones together because they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't even like have the translations. They just had it in Japanese. So they just wrote all new stories for them. So they watched them basically on mute at this point because they didn't understand what the hell was going on, and then just came up with new stories. So it'd be like you watching a cartoon in a foreign language and just being like, fuck it, I'm not going to take the time to learn the language. I'm just going to make up my own story to go with what's going on screen. And then, long story short, the heads of the production company wanted the ones with the lions, and that was it. Because they originally had 2 or 3 other series all kind of cut together to form a story. But they wanted the ones with the lions, and that's what we got Voltron, and that's what was successful. And the crazy thing is, it ran around this same time. Like you said, this was...
So interesting, because I was super curious about the timeline for this. But you are correct that Voltron aired in the United States. Actually, we had mentioned that the Mighty Orbots had premiered September 8th, 1984. Voltron premiered in the U.S. September 10th, 1984.
Take that.
So 2 days difference.
Yeah.
But again, reminder that Voltron is based off of some other, IP that existed in Japan at that time.
Yeah, and more importantly, that these guys...
Beast King Go Lion.
Beast King Go Lion. And more importantly, that these guys own the rights to. Yeah. So they could take that and use it. And these guys were blatantly ripping off some of the other stuff. So that's why Orbots only had 1 season and Voltron went in for at least like 120 episodes, something like that, once it was all said and done.
I mean, it depends because there's so many different... I think it was 124 episodes for Voltron, but Beast King Go Lion, I just love saying his name.
It's so great. It's almost as good as 6-god combination God Mars.
God Mars.
Yeah, you can never have God too many times in your anime title.
But Beast King Go Lion went for 52 episodes, and that premiered March 4 of 1981 and went until February 24th, 1982.
Yeah.
So
the timing's pretty interesting for all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one's kind of cool for people that didn't get to see it. Everybody kind of knows Voltron. The Japanese anime fans, the purists out there, probably know Beast Go Lion and God Mars and all these other stuff. Maybe Mighty Orbots flew under your radar, though.
Yeah, and it's a shame that it did because I'm actually I will as a sidebar, not to dig too much into Voltron on this one, but when they re-released Voltron finally on DVD back in like 2004.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
I had Netflixed them, sat down, and began watching it, and honestly, I wanted to love every moment of it, but I did not.
Really interesting.
I did not really enjoy it in the way that I had in my childhood. And I don't know if it's maybe time or maturity now, but watching Orbots, I was like, yeah, like this Orbots, the Mighty Orbots is what I had wanted when I sat down to watch Voltron.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, just because of the history that Sean just went through. So lawsuit, terrible names, horrendous title. They had to change the characters kind of and the names kind of from an original pilot that they had to the Mighty Orbots, which you wouldn't think it was great either way. Good change.
Because honestly, with Brutes, they knocked it out of the park.
I like Brutes, though. I
like Brutes, too. I do. It's good.
I could imagine being in that room, though, and the guy who just, for a weekend, just came up with every single possible combination of letters in the word robots, like all those anagrams, and it was just like, Brutes! It's like, it's so good! And then they're just like, nope, Orbots. He probably killed himself. I can't imagine not killing yourself at that point because brutes.
Poor Fred Silverman was just like, guys, look, this makes robots makes two other words. It makes brutes and Orbots, and they're just like
one of them's stupid.
Just Orbots. He's like, you guys sure? Yes.
Yeah, we already have the title card. It says robots. We'll just get Jerry to switch it around. It's fine.
Oh, Jerry.
Poor Jerry. But no, so you would think after all these crazy things, the lawsuit and all that stuff, that it would be a cheap ripoff. You think it would be a cheap copy of all this other stuff. It was surprisingly good. From the animation, the voice casting, the stories, the plot things that happen. They have actual plot twists, which was like unheard of in these things. And it wasn't that it was a Japanese cartoon, a Japanese plot that they just then dubbed for English audiences. They animated it in Japan, and then they actually planned in production to distribute and release it in America and Japan. So it was planned from the beginning to be accessible to both, which I think is great. And it worked pretty well. Just because of the lawsuit stuff, it only got to stick around for one season. Hey, do you want to talk about what the show's actually about?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, it's just funny that people get really defensive over their fighting robots, whether it's God Mars, Go Lion, or Orbots.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd love to put them all together in like a giant melee battle and just see who wins.
Too bad that there was never like a crossover where like you had GoBots, Transformers, God Mars, Go Lion, and Orbots all four, because that's 5 right there.
Yeah, that's 25 robots all coming together to form.
If they had all combined into a larger fighting robot,
it just keeps going forever. It's like a fractal. Fractals of robots. Anybody out there who's inclined, please make me a repeating fractal gif of the mighty Orbots. I'll love you forever.
Turn into a fractal.
Oh boy.
Oh man, Dave, do you want to walk us through the synopsis?
Yeah, let's roll through this. So, like I said at the beginning, we're in the 23rd century here, and as you know, the future is a time of robots and aliens. It's just how it is.
Can't wait.
Yep.
Can't wait.
So it does take place on Earth here. So the people of Earth have banded together along with several other peaceful alien races to promote peace throughout the galaxy, forming the United Planets, as you tend to do in these situations. As part of the United Planets, the Galactic Patrol, a body of law enforcers, works to maintain order under the leadership of Commander Rondu. Now, here's where we'll get into one of our first kind of sci-fi, not tropes, but it's kind of an homage. Commander Rondu is not human. He's got ears like a Vulcan. So it seems like it's a nod to Star Trek at this point. Sort of the very practical, logical race who should probably be in command of your Galactic Space Patrol. So
that's somebody who you want.
That's
kind of leading, like running shit.
Yeah, you need a Rondu. He doesn't do much other than like communicate things and just be like, hey, we need the mighty Orbots. This shit's about to go down.
Exactly. Yeah. I can sum up every conversation with like the little computer bleeping.
Yep.
And then
shit going down.
and Rob Simmons going, oh, what is it? What is it, Commander Rondu? We need the mighty Orbots. He's like, got it, and that's it.
Got it. That's all I'm here for. Yeah. I don't know what he does with the rest of his day, but at least 5 minutes of it is spent calling in the Orbots and then just sitting watching monitors. But hey, he's earned it. He's earned it.
I guess you have to think at that point, like if you have such if you have a giant fighting robot of this nature, do you, like, is your job threatened at that point? Like, are you somebody like who he's not really doing much.
No.
Like I have to wonder, like, what's he a commander of? Is he a commander of just picking up the red phone and calling somebody else?
Yeah, he's like Commissioner Gordon in the 1960s Batman series.
He's not really doing anything.
I have this alternate...
Except having an attractive daughter.
Yeah, he does, which we will get into. We will get into her.
For anybody listening, this is the first time that Dave and I are actually doing this show in a Google Hangout where we have continuous video.
It's because we're joined together, so we can't not look at each other.
Together.
We joined navel to navel, which was really weird, but
it was a bad choice on our part.
It's working out.
In saying that Commander Rondu has an attractive daughter, there was a moment, Dave just did it again, where he just gets like the biggest smile across his face and then he just doesn't say anything for like a second. It is.
I forget that I'm on a video chat.
You are glowing right now.
I'm very excited. Very excited about Dia, and I'm also excited about Boo and Bo, who,
oh boy,
like I said, we will have many a discussion about them.
Well,
But yeah,
so
real
I'm
quick, in
sorry,
my
I
in my
sidetracked.
my non-erotic Mighty Orbots fan fiction, I like to think that Commander Rondu, he's like earned his place, man. Like he was through the Galactic Unification Wars, and he put down some rebellions, and 23rd century, a lot of shit's gone down between now and then. So he earned his place, I think. I like
No
to
doubt.
think. But yeah, for right now, he
Okay.
just calls in the robots and lets them do their thing. So, in as the antagonist in the show, powerful criminal organization called Shadow, of course, is out to destroy both the Galactic Patrol and the United Planets. So Shadow is led by Umbra, who might be one of my favorite villains of all time, because this thing is nuts. It's kind of along the lines of like what like Galactus, kind of from the comics.
Well, no, Galactus in like the Marvel universe, Galactus actually had a body.
Okay, I couldn't
So
remember. Yeah,
Galactus was a large.
he was just a big guy.
Yeah, he was the eater of planets, and so Galactus. This was correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but Umbra was a biomechanical computer that was the size of a planet's core.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
this crazy thing called the Shadow Star where he hangs out, and it's
Right.
basically they say in like the intro that it's a planet that's big enough to house a sun at its core to heat it.
Yep.
So all
Yeah.
science aside, that's pretty badass. So Umbra is like
But-
at the heart of
but
this
what
thing,
it-
and he's just like a city planet that is just made of transistors and all this stuff, and he's basically just a
And-
planet
and-
computer. Yeah.
What does Umbra look like?
He looks like a nightmare. You only kind of see his face. His face is kind of like this pink and purple holographic image of. It's almost like a Hindu god. He's got like 5 eyes. Occasionally he has a mouth. So it's like the third eye at the top of his forehead, 2 eyes where we would have them, and then 2 eyes below those. So he's got 5 eyes and kind of a weird mouth, and he's basically just like in this glowing sun in the center of a planet. So it's ridiculous. And Sean's doing a very good impression right now, which unfortunately you guys can't see. I can see it up close and personal because it's 2 inches away from my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how fusion works.
Okay, so we got Shadow, led by Umbra. They also employ, sinister agents and ridiculous schemes to kind of control all corners of the galaxy. So guess what? There's one thing that helps the fight against Shadow. The ingenious inventor, Rob Simmons. Of all the names in this show, that might be the worst because it's just like Rob Simmons. Apologies to any Rob Simmons out there listening, but that's just kind of a lame
Aw.
hero name. But yeah.
It was good. I mean, if
Yeah.
they were they're looking for generic white guy.
Yeah, and they got
Nailed it with Rob Simmons.
Yeah, they nailed it. It's Commander
Yeah.
Ajax. Yeah, Rob Simmons. Secretly a member of Galactic Patrol, he creates 6 special robots who can use their unique powers to battle against the forces of Umbra. And as you might have guessed it, together these robots unite to form a giant robot called Mighty Orbots to fight for, quote, truth, justice, and peace for all. Not the American way. Because we're talking planet
Yeah.
unions here. Sorry, America.
So I wanna ask, did you watch this at all when it was on television?
I'd never heard of it until you brought it up,
You
a
never
few
heard
weeks
of it?
ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Never even heard of it. Never crossed my mind. Granted, I was 1 when this came out, but I'd never seen
Okay.
it after that either. How about you?
Okay.
Do you remember this at all?
I can't remember. I'm gonna default and say no.
That's probably safe.
I did not remember this. I did not see it. But one of the things that kind of spurred the idea behind watching this has been, over the last like 2 months, I feel that that artificial intelligence has been in the news quite a bit.
Mhm.
Whether it's been Bill Gates saying that he is worried about the state of artificial intelligence.
Or Siri
whether-
getting snarky when you try to divide 0 by 0.
Yes, exactly. Or Elon Musk
Mhm.
saying that he is hesitant about artificial intelligence, and then there's a group that he backs that just recently gave $7 million. I think like yesterday they gave $7 million to explore the risks in artificial intelligence. And so there are, or whether or not we're recording this the day after Terminator Genesis just premiered, in the theaters. All of these things kind of come together, where we are at the forefront of where AI is now kind of getting to that point where people are like, I'm a little bit hesitant and nervous about this.
Yeah, because it feels like it's within
And-
our grasp. It's not such a distant concept anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, we have machines that can learn. We have machines that, are beginning to kind of think. Thank goodness we don't have anything that's like self-aware. But, I mean, it was a curious topic. And so sort of when I began watching Mighty Orbots, a lot of these current event news items suddenly jumped into my mind, and I was like, oh shit, like this is very interesting, because I'm curious over I watched the first 3 episodes, and I know, Dave, you watched the first 3, and then I believe you watched the 13th episode.
Yeah, because as we will get into, they actually kind of completed their plot arc for the first season.
Yeah.
So everything that happens, everything they build up to, is actually kind of resolved in the final episode, which is unusual. So I want to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was. Well, I think that merits digging into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we've watched so many cartoons that are canceled or they just continue, and then there's never a resolution to anything. It's just sort of it's like
we are still waiting for like all of our protagonists to find their dad. They're all just out there somewhere together having a barbecue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you think about, like, we've watched a couple robot related cartoons so far. And so they, like, especially go back to episode 2 when we watched Bots Master,
which I think is the ancestor of Rob Simmons and his Mighty Orbots. I think somewhere along the line. I like to connect these guys over space and time.
Yeah. Well, then we have gone horribly awry.
I think it's gotten better.
Things have gone horribly wrong. Yeah. If the idea, are you saying that Bots Masters was the beginning, and then Orbots is the 6th?
Yeah, okay, I can't remember what century Bots Master was supposed to be set in.
Okay.
But I'm hoping it was before the 23rd, because Orbots seem vastly superior to this idiots.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's we don't get a chance to watch very many cartoons that actually have that unique opportunity to sort of wrap up everything that they want to talk about, to finalize those to finalize that story. I think we've seen it very, very rarely. Thinking just off the top of my head, I know at the end of season 2 of Exo Squad, they kind of wrapped up a portion of it, but then they teased it what a 3rd season.
Yeah, just in case they could have it production. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like we don't get an opportunity to, or
like robotics we talked about.
See this. And exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so robotics was like a 90-minute movie, and so that was difficult to watch. And so
in 5-minute segments, God, what a marathon of nightmares that was. Yeah. So you have
there's just a. Well, so it's great to be able to see somebody. I love the idea of sitting down and watching something that Fred Silverman had pitched, and that this had finally come to fruition. And then I want to say that being able to walk away from that experience must have been rewarding.
Yeah.
To just be like, hey, I did it, and I did everything I wanted to. I could have done a season 2, but I finished what I started. To the best of my ability before I got sued.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm out.
Which I think it was great too. I mean, we'll get into this a little bit more when we get to the episode discussion, but honestly, like, this is one I'd already say worth checking out, because it's surprisingly good. And I mean, there are moments where they fall into the kind of the same old tropes, and they do real cartoonish stuff, and they have a lot of just terrible puns and one-liners that are awful, but I mean, it is still a kid's show, so it's fine.
Right.
You want to get into these characters a little bit more, since we kind of talked about them at the outset?
Well, I do. Before we do that, did you want to talk anything about the theme song?
Oh, we can totally talk about the theme song.
Your eyes lit up.
Yeah, go.
Oh man. So I listening to this theme song maybe 3 or 4 times today.
Yeah.
Again, it was one of those things that was immediately energetic. I have been kind of just like screaming this in the basement.
It's a real easy one to get a hold of and just remember forever, and we will now.
Right. And I don't I want to say that I don't, maybe it was the dubbing or just some of the audio quality on the videos that I watched, but I'm not 100% sure of the lyrics, so I'm now finding these out for the first time.
Oh, this will be fun. No, and it's weird too, because there were a couple different songs. I think there was a longer one in the first episode, not counting the pilot. So there was a longer one that kind of like it was intercut with like narration explaining who everybody is and what they're doing and what their attributes are and all that stuff. And then there's a much shorter one. It's maybe like 30-40 seconds that runs at the beginning of the other 12 episodes.
Yeah. And I will say that longer intro for the first episode I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Especially, I'll say before we jump into the theme song, just the usage of the narration in this.
Yes.
Where I feel that a lot of cartoons that we've watched would have just cut from scene to scene to scene and left you to fill in the blank yourself.
Right.
This show employed a narrator that bridged and filled in all of those gaps for you.
Yeah.
So at no point were you ever confused or concerned, and it's not like they overused it. It was simply just like, what's going to happen to the Orbots this time?
He was pretty persistent, though. I mean, it's fine because
I think it was
Gary
helpful.
Owens. So,
yes.
I mean, this is Space Ghost telling me what's going down, so I have no problem with him just telling me, are they in dire straits? Are things about to get worse? Is help on the way? I'm fine, Gary Owens. Just tell me what I need to know. That's fine.
Yeah, and I think that was so super helpful because there are some times where they're jumping from different
God
planets.
knows what planet.
They're jumping from all these different places, and you're just like, I'm like, there's a lot going on, and so it's helpful to have somebody just say like, hey, this is what's up. I'm just checking in, making sure you guys are still.
Meanwhile, in the Emerald Nebula. Yeah,
that was so great. Like all these things were wonderful, and it's that sort of same inflection in his voice where it's just like, the mighty Orbots face the greatest challenge.
Every episode's the greatest challenge.
Do it.
I love his one intro. So for the intro of the pilot for Brutes, he's basically like, welcome to a serene and peaceful Earth. A rocket streams in, ready to smash into civilization. Just out of nowhere, you're just like 0 to 100, and it's like, let's go, man. Let's get to these robots.
I want this guy to narrate everything in my life.
It was pretty great.
Here you sit on your back porch, enjoying this fine, beautiful, lovely evening. Suddenly, something happened and an explosion nearby occurred. I'd be like, what?
And then just cue theme song.
Go, mighty Orbots.
So you have the lyrics in front of you? You want to go through them real quick?
Well, yeah, that's so. The only thing that I really remember from this theme song that had me so pumped was just the Go Mighty Orbots, and that's sort of what I've been chanting nonstop.
Heck yeah.
And so it goes, Go Mighty Orbots. They're joining together to fight for what's right everywhere, mighty Orbots. Protecting the world from the shadow of evil and doom, Orbots. Champion of justice and truth. And then it goes through sort of like a roll call where it's
I love
Ono,
roll calls.
Tor, Bort, Bo, Boo, Crunch.
Mm-hmm.
Go, mighty Orbots, mechanical heroes fighting for me and for you.
Orbots. Yeah.
And so
it's great. So if you don't know that this show's about Orbots by the end of it, then you haven't been paying attention. I love in the original intro too, they call them, this might be like the tagline on the title screen, but it's Mighty Orbots, Champions of the Universe. So they've just established that right out of the gates, and they are champions of the universe. So they got the belt, they got the Worldwide Federation belt around there. And so it is. We do. Just the WWF belt for robots. Just for robots. Just robots. Oh. So we kind of did the roll call, and we talked about some of these characters. So like you had mentioned, Dave, let's jump into some. Yeah, let's roll through them. So I mean, you went through the roll call there with their names, which, with the exception of Crunch, can all be derived from the letters of robot. Hey, guess what other name can be derived from the letters in robot? Rob Simmons. Rob Simmons. God, yes. Anyway, so he's kind of a young guy, but he's a young, good-looking guy, smart guy. He really likes this one, the daughter of the commander here, but he spends all his time like checking schematics and making robots. So is that the only thing he spends his time doing? I mean, he makes a lot of sandwiches and birthday cakes and a lot of weird stuff. He plays a lot of virtual holographic games. Yeah. I want to say this. I know you were a little wary about Rob Simmons and just sort of how basic his name is. Mm-hmm. I can relate to Rob. And that's what he's there for. Yeah. Because I make a lot of sandwiches and I play a lot of video games. But you don't make that many robots. Well, you know what? I'm working on it. I know. That's fine. You'll get there. I'm working on it. I'm getting there. You'll get there. I'm trying. Well, you don't have an Omni suit either. I don't have a lot of things that this dude has. Yeah, he's got a beam car. He's got an Omni suit. Yeah. So he's basically like the de facto human leader of these Orbots. They all kind of listen to him, but he's not like authoritarian. He's just He's pretty much just like their friend. He's their creator, but he's their friend. And honestly, he's got a second in command that is way more demanding than he is, way more strict,
Ooh,
which is
boy.
kind of funny. We can talk about her in a little bit, but
Yeah.
Rob is pretty much straight up your normal hero. So he uses these guys as his friends and his weapons of war. That's about it. You don't really get too much else from him.
Right. And this voice actor is Barry Gordon, which immediately upon turning this on, he has done so many notable voice acting roles. Do you remember any off the top of your head?
I mean, I had to look the voice up because it was driving me crazy because I could recognize him.
Oh, okay.
But I couldn't remember why. So can I give you the one big one that I have?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Donatello from the original Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, he was Donatello and Bebop.
Oh yeah, a ton of different ones, but the main was like Donatello. Yeah.
He was the voice actor in a show that we watched, or a couple shows that we've watched actually.
It sounds so familiar, but I can't think of it.
He was Razor in SWAT Cats.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
You know those cat terrorists.
Cat terrorists dropping squid bombs all over the city. Jerks.
He was in Jabberjaws. He was Snorks. He was Junior Wentworth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
he's done a ton of stuff.
He was in Darkwing Duck, Batman the Animated Series. I mean, this guy he was in Pirates of Darkwater. This guy has been in a lot of cartoons that we have watched.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some other pretty
job.
big ones in here. I think we kind of nailed maybe the two biggest, if I'm not mistaken. And we're a little over halfway on our time, so I want to make sure we actually get to the episode discussion. So, real quick, we can mention Dia. She is the hot daughter of the Commander Rondu, and she's kind of the object of affection of Rob, but she's always off doing her own stuff for the Galactic Patrol. She's always out kind of like either saving the day or screwing up the day, depending on the episode. So she's kind of out there too, and I don't know if we ever really see them connect at all or not, but that's why she's kind of there. She does her own thing, but she also is a love interest for Rob, which kind of conflicts with some of the Orbots in a weird way. Yeah,
let's talk about these Orbots quickly.
Yeah. Let's start with this. Work our way from the head down. How's that sound?
Yeah. So we have Tor, who is he's the biggest and the strongest out of all of the Orbots. He, as Dave said, there's no real leader. I want to say Rob is sort of the de facto leader of this guy, but I want to say Tor is. He kind of felt like if the Orbots had a leader. He kind of felt like the guy who sort of wrangles some of them in.
Which is interesting. He's kind of like their lead fighter, but as far as strategy or tactics or anything like that, this guy's it's pretty much zero. You don't get any of that kind of stuff from him in battle. So he will just kind of bulldoze his way through some stuff, but he's just he's just kind of a grunt, to be honest with you. And it more or less looks like Optimus Prime. So if you look like a less angular version of Optimus Prime, you kind of have an idea of what Tor looks like.
Yeah.
So you want to move down?
He's voiced by Bill Martin, who actually Bill Martin took over as the voice of Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles after the original voice actor was Avery. After he left after James Avery left the show. So if you're just like, this name is killing me, I don't know where it's from.
Saturday morning cartoons trivia.
Yep. Yeah. So we have Bort.
Oh, these names are killing me.
I can't say Bort without thinking that one episode of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
Where they're Itchy and Scratchy Land and Bart can't find his nameplate.
Didn't Coke come out with a thing where they actually put Bort on a Coke can?
Oh, have a
name, have a Coke,
Bort.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bort is he is like a I don't know, he's a svelte and anxious robot.
Yeah. He's kind of he has self-confidence issues. He's a shape changer, so he can change into pretty much anything from literally just a human-shaped robot to a jet to a vacuum cleaner thing to a rocking chair in one episode, which was really strange.
And all of this is possible with something called a quick change circuit,
right?
Which it's just that simple, guys.
That's just how circuits work.
One circuit, just throw it in.
Yeah, just throw it in. Quick change. Now he's a rocking chair.
Yep.
Just get that rocking chair patch, and you're good to go. Just download it. Yeah. Updates to the latest rocker. Yeah.
So Bort, I don't think he looked like any other. He was like a very like a blue and a silver color.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything that he was reminiscent of regarding other robots.
No,
So-
and he plays one of the legs.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. Sounds like
Yeah,
such a short fall for him.
Well,
like, oh yeah, he's a leg.
Well, I think the best part was that before we started recording tonight, the next two robots that I'm going to talk about in kind of come in tandem are Bo and Boo.
And these two need
and
a whole podcast of themselves, I think, because it's just so much weird stuff going on here.
Dave he just goes, they both form into Tor's armpit.
Yeah.
They both like
Just jam their heads into his armpit.
Yep. Like if you were to scrunch up your like your shoulders to your ears and then plug yourself into a friend's armpit, that's what
you are
that's
now
what Bo and,
1/5 of the mighty Orbots. Yep.
And it's interesting because Bo and Boo, they look almost identical.
Yeah, they're twins, aren't they? Aren't they supposed
yeah.
to be twins? Yeah.
I mean, I believe so.
Twin robot sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so Bo is distinguished because she's yellow and orange,
Right.
and Boo is like a white and a yellow color. And so Boo has the ability to create optical illusions and sort of disappear. And Bo has elemental powers that she can use for defensive and offensive purposes.
Yeah, and these two are they're interesting for a number of reasons. One is they do try to distinguish them through their design, like Sean just mentioned with the color scheme. There is kind of like more of a robot boob thing going on with one of them than the other. Yeah, and then they have, it's their personalities that really have them stand apart, and I think that the voice acting it was great for these two because it establishes Bo as kind of the more assertive one, more the playful one. She's very confident. She's willing to just kind of go out and do her own thing. She's a bit randy. She's a bit randy.
I've wrote down so many quotes from her over the course of these 3 episodes that I watched. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Bo. Okay, and then Boo is kind of the more innocent
She's
one,
a
little shy, a little more naive, things like that. So the question I have for you, Mr. Ellis.
Yeah.
Bo or Boo?
I'm gonna go Bo.
You're gonna go Bo? Okay, me too.
I'm gonna go Bo.
Me too. I'm not into that kind of
you're
shrinking violet kind of thing. I like Bo.
I like
She's a 10.
Yeah, I'm looking for my robot women to be assertive.
Yeah, not too assertive because they'll rip your limbs off, but jam their head in your armpit. But
yeah, well, I mean, I'm not opposed.
But I like that. That's a possibility.
All I'm trying to say for all of our robot lady listeners out there, I'm
Siri.
hit me up.
Yeah.
Send me a message. Let me know what your kick is.
Oh boy. We will get into kind of
Give me your Snapchat.
These two again in a little bit because they have some crazy stuff that kind of goes down in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
Any notes on their voice actors real quick?
Julie Bennett did Boo and what was it? Sherry
Alberoni, I have.
Yeah.
Which
and she was in the Mickey Mouse Club.
Oh.
She was in the very early Mickey Mouse Club. And I'm trying to think oh my gosh, I'm gonna screw this up. The Julie Bennett, she did something as well. I can't remember. She was on a lot of she was on a lot of like television like shows like Leave It to Beaver. It seems like a lot of the voice cast from this era were on some of these older
like older sitcoms,
fantastic television sitcoms, and so they so it I guess maybe this show kind of almost felt like it may have been like a reunion for some of them to like come together,
or even a transition too, because
it was because the 80s was around the time where we had a lot of cartoons that that required good voice actors, and so if these people were in those cartoons at this point, they're hitting maybe another point in their career and they want to try something different. So
and good on them.
Awesome. It definitely helped with this show, but we have 2 more robots that we should get into.
We got 1 more leg. So if you're picturing our robot right now, he's got a head, a torso, 2 arms, and 1 leg. So the other remaining leg?
Crunch.
I was gonna say you can't make his name out of the letters in robot though, which is weird.
No, you cannot.
Crunch.
So we have Crunch. So Crunch is he's the chubby robot who loves to eat, and there's no other way to say
he eats and everything too. Like you really gotta like lock stuff down and keep it away from him because he will just chew through pretty much everything. He's like a termite.
Mm-hmm.
He's a termite robot.
And my favorite thing is that the voice actor for this is Don Messick, who did the voice of Muttley from Wacky Races. And so he was the dog that always was like that kind of like
Yeah, just
laughed
that little
creepily like in the background. I
That
love
little
that.
creepy laugh.
And the creepy laugh dog. So perfect.
And then we have
So-
if you're wondering what else we could possibly have for the mighty Orbots, because our picture is now complete, you must remember
Yeah.
that you need a key to start the ignition.
Mhm. Let's not make this oddly sexual at
Well,
all.
it wasn't intended to be, because it's the thing on the show. So actually, the oldest robot, who doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't do anything. She actually does quite a bit, but she doesn't transform into anything. She's basically kind of like this child-sized little girl robot, and her name is Ono.
And if you're curious how that's spelled, it is the word O and the word no, just with no spaces. It is OHNO.
Because that's her catchphrase, and that's all she says.
Yep.
And there's a real creepy line early on. Did you catch this one?
Oh no.
Oh no. Jesus. Oh no.
Oh no.
Basically, Rob's talking to her, and she keeps saying, "Oh no, oh no," and he's like, "Why do you always say that?" And she's like, "You program me this way," and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna reprogram you to say, oh yes," and it was just oh no, that's not good. It's not gonna go well. But they got away from that creepy stuff, and they have a nice kind of rapport with each other, because she is the smallest of his robots, but it's his first creation. So she actually keeps the other ones in line. And there's some cool moments where the other guys are acting up. She's telling them, like, go do your chores. It's time to go recharge for the night. We're done for the day. And this, the huge hulking Tor is looking down at her like, you can't tell me what to do. Like, I'm 400 times your size. You're not gonna. And she like grabs him by the nose and kind of like winks his nose. And she's like, "You do what I tell you right now, or we're gonna have problems." So she's kind of cool. She's a little spitfire, and she is actually more of the leader of the team, especially in the final episode, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But what were your thoughts on Ono?
I thought she was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was very funny. She seemed like the kid sister that Rob sort of needed, but with a more of a. So I guess my problem with some of the kid sister sidekick trope is that they typically feel, I don't want to say useless, but they feel like they're employed in a way where they need to be captured, or they need to, like, something needs to happen to that kid sister in order to create
to move the plot along,
some
or
kind
something.
of stakes for the episode.
Yeah.
And in this case, Ono didn't fall into that. Like, I mean, there was one episode where she had some things, where I think she had sort of like an existential robot crisis.
She had a Little Mermaid moment.
She had a Little Mermaid moment, and so it was but it was fun. But it wasn't something that it wasn't something where she put everybody else really in risk, or it wasn't that she was a like a poor or a shitty character in that sense. It's
she wasn't weak.
She had other hopes. Yeah, she wasn't weak in any sense. Like, she had other hopes and desires, and so she kind of pursued them. And so,
honestly, way more than a lot of the other robots did. She was more of a human character than a robot character, and she was kind of a stand-in for Rob sometimes. And they actually, so we teased, well, we didn't tease it, we just didn't fully explain it, that she is kind of the ignition for Mighty Orbots. She kind of plugs into the control panel, and she helps control it and operate it with Rob. So that's a big plot point that comes into play again in the finale, where it's meant for two people. They kind of fly their beam car in, and they use that as their cockpit kind of thing, and that's where they control.
And so if you're curious, Ono is a female robot whose chest opens up, where a mechanical phallus comes out of it and sticks into a computer car. And so she is sort of like pegging in order to like start up the mighty Orbot.
Yeah. They didn't have push button technology, no push button start back then. It was the old key in the ignition.
Yep. Oh boy. It is interesting. But let's do we want to jump into
let's go through some episodes, because the only other major character that we have mentioned is Umbra. We've already kind of talked about him. It, or whatever the thing is. So so Umbra. Okay. We watched the pilot. There's not a whole lot to say about that. It was basically just a rough, kind of unfinished version of Orbots. So they all had the same kind of character design. They more or less had the same names. They did the same things. They just were kind of a rough, unfinished version of it. So the ones you see in Orbots are definitely the more finished, polished versions. They're basically like, Brutes 2.0. And they have a better paint job, and they've got some better designs. So, so our first episode that we actually have What was it? What was the name of that one again? I had it written down here, but now
It was Magnetic Menace.
Yes, Magnetic Menace. How could I forget?
Yep.
Golly, where do you want to start with this one?
Well, so what happens is there's a ship that is in trouble right outside of Earth,
right?
And so the Orbots immediately go to assist.
Hold on, I need to stop you right there immediately because I take.
They kind of take their sweet ass.
I have a problem with that word. So you see, Commander Rondu, he's like, oh shit, we got a problem. This ship up in space is getting pelted by a meteor shower. The only people who can help are the mighty Orbots. At which point we go through like a 5 or 6 minute sequence where they introduce all the Orbots. They are coming from recharging stations, which, as an aside, they call them recharge stations, but because of the audio quality, it sounded like they said retard stations. So I apologize, but that's what I heard. So they're coming out of their retard stations, and they're like spread all over the Earth or whatever for some reason. They're all over the place. It seems that way anyway. They come from different recharge stations. So they introduce them, the power of illusion and the power of strength, the power to eat anything he wants. And then they take their sweet time just coming together and uniting into mighty Orbots. At which point then they rocket blast up into space. And this is what killed me. When they get to the ship, they can't help it. So he's like, oh, we should probably just split up again and take this thing on robot by robot. I was like, well, you just wasted all that fucking time for no reason. These people are probably just dead, just smashed to bits in here. But this was early on. I was a lot more lenient with the show after this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was it's always interesting when people like right out of the gate are just like, hey, we need to like form the massive fighting thing that we are supposed to.
No build
and then
up.
3 seconds later, they're just like, this really isn't working.
Nah,
for me.
take it apart.
Can you get out of my armpit for like a couple minutes?
I can't breathe in here. It's just.
I will say the interesting thing for a lot of this is that sort of some of these personality traits that you wouldn't necessarily associate with robots come through at this point, where Bort, with his indecisiveness, he is trying to figure out, or he's trying to remember a specific play in the Orbots playbook, and he gets confused, and then he comes up with a great idea and executes it. And so it's
the team supports him too, which I like. I like that they support him. Yeah.
And it's nice to see that they're not making them as mechanical and as stiff as they potentially could have.
Yeah.
They gave them a decent amount of personality for each one of these Orbots.
Yeah, and they did some pretty cool stuff in trying to get this ship rescued. And they basically do at the end of the day, the end of the intro, they rescue this ship. Now, you would think maybe that it just kind of stops there and we just send the ship on its merry way. No, they actually fold this into the narrative, which is where it started to get a little more interesting. Yeah. So do you remember the guys that were on board this thing?
Yeah, so the ship is actually is piloted by 2, I guess, robot intergalactic rock stars.
You got it.
Was it Dracos and Drax?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So Dracos and Drax are, one has just like a guitar and the other has a like Kenny G style saxophone.
I love that, man. Anytime I get to see a robot saxophone, I'm in heaven.
I guess the problem, I sat there watching it and I screamed, like I kind of like out loud. I was like, really? No percussion?
Yeah, no, they don't need it.
Come on, robots.
They've got internal percussion that just kind of bangs around on their parts. Do you remember the name of the band?
No.
So this was kind of a cool little nod too. So it was called Disaster Area. And there's actually a line later on, you probably have it written down, one of the girls says it.
Disaster Area is playing on Mars?
Yeah. Well, she says that. Disaster Area is playing on Mars. But then she says, hold on, I want to get to this line first. I want to get there in the narrative.
Okay,
so go ahead. So they've got these 2 rockers on the ship. The girls and all the other Orbots just saved them. So what happens next?
They invite him to a concert that's that evening. And it turns out that Dracos and Drax are employed by Umbra and Shadow. Yeah, I know, right? And so this leads to so Bo and Boo are enamored.
This got a little weird.
Enamored. And this is where, and as we're talking about, like, I have this in my notes. It just says sexy robot talk. And this is where things got interesting, is that you have
they're basically groupies at this point.
Yeah, they're primping themselves in a mirror. Now, hence they are robots with immutable hair.
That's right.
And so there's nothing
They're
that's
just
going to
shining
change.
themselves up, just
They're
buffing some dents
and
out.
polishing.
Yeah, they're buffing.
And so they are getting there, and so this is the exchange that I wrote down, where I believe Boo, she just goes, if I ever meet Draxus or Dracos and Drax, I can't even think what I'd say. And Boo responds, I can.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
She's the best.
This is then followed by Bo saying, I think I'll charge. She goes, I think I'll do an extra hour recharge. I may need it.
Yeah.
And I was
just like, wow, she's getting all in. She's ready to go. Okay, do you remember the line where she says, these guys are so hip, they're triple jointed?
Yeah.
That's actually a line. So that and Disaster Area are actually lines from Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I didn't know that until I pulled it up on the wiki. But because at first I made fun of it, and then I was like, oh, crap, that's actually from Hitchhiker's Guide. That's actually pretty cool. In a nerdy way. Yeah.
So it turns out that Boo and Bo break into the backstage area.
Yeah, using their like invisi powers to creep around and act as groupies. Yeah.
And they pop up behind these two rock stars and just immediately just go, where are we going after the show? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Slow your circuits.
And you basically, so you see, and here's the first time you really kind of see the difference between the two. So Bo is just like, hey, what's up, guys? So where are we going after the show? And Boo, like, if a robot could blush, she does. Yeah. She kind of like, coyly kind of puts her hand over her mouth and is just like, oh. So they kind of play that off. But then something even stranger happens. Which you might expect for a couple of young groupie girls backstage at a rock concert.
Oh, what happens?
Well,
they get
they basically get roofied.
The two rock stars. Yeah, the two rock stars. They look at them and they say, "We're gonna play a special song just for you."
Yeah. Now these guys know that the two robots are.
Oh my God.
They know that they're members of the Galactic Patrol, but they don't know that they're part of the mighty Orbots, which makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
But they're basically like, we know these guys.
Like Umbra's intel on these
good.
Orbots and this galactic is shitty.
It's shit.
Is really really shitty. Yeah. And so
Well, he's out there in the core of a planet. He can't have the best intel, I guess. I don't know.
But he's almost. He's talking to everybody all the time.
Yeah,
it seems
he's the internet. He is what the internet will become in 200 years.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. So so these two rock stars get up and they play a song and it roofies them, and so they pass out. And so afterwards,
and we don't see what happens to them. No clue.
And this is the part that I guess maybe was weird for me is that Bo and Boo both wake up afterwards and they're like in a haze. And this was the line that they say. They go, "Must have been some night. I can't remember a thing." And I was like, what the fuck?
Like, that's not good. They don't seem concerned about it. They're just like, yeah, we had a fucking rockin' night. Like
there have been a few nights in my life where I have done things to excess and then I have not been able to recall necessarily all the details.
Yeah.
And those were not good nights.
Oh.
Like, those were not good nights. Like, I was always, a little bit nervous and scared about, waking up the next day and be like, oh, what have I done and who do I need to apologize
Exactly.
to?
And these two apparently just, I don't know what happened. We don't, well, you actually do know what happened.
It's a day in the life of the Orbots,
It's a day in the life of Lady Orbots. Oh, boy. But it is actually, it's interesting. So you do see what happens. So there is this kind of like weird side story, this kind of mini plot involving these two, which was more interesting to me than the other stuff. But so the rock stars, when they play, they have like, basically, they have these like magnetic waves that kind of come out and they create this massive alien monster, just like the Magneto Beast kind of thing. So they conjure him up. Long story short, they transport the Orbots away and they're like trapped with all this magnetism. And then they use some kind of weird pseudoscience where they need like hyper cold to knock this magnetic monster down a little bit. And
yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing, that like magnetism's like the polarity in magnets is reduced when it's exposed to extreme cold.
Yeah. And I was like, well, you're
in real science?
I think it's the power, the magnetic kind of power is reduced with extreme cold. So basically, like, if you would super cool a magnet, I don't know. I actually don't know that too much. That sounds right to me. What doesn't sound right is they're already kind of in deep space, so I feel like that's pretty damn cold. They need.
I feel like this first edition of Dave's Science Corner is not going as well
Science
as
Cartoon Corner. But they do.
Sounds legit.
At this point, though, they send him to Saturn's rings because apparently that's colder. Which it very well may be. I don't know. The cool thing I liked about this was the animation style, because they do these really neat sweeping kind of vistas through the solar system or through the universe sometimes. And you just get these like massive planets in the background and cool stuff happening in front of it, and asteroids and meteors and Saturn's rings and sunrises and all kind of neat stuff.
And I think the fun thing for me was trying to figure out, did this concert happen on Earth?
Right.
And in the matter of about 3 seconds, they managed to get to like this outer world planet.
Right.
And I think that's what's fun, was that there was a, where I think other shows maybe would have gotten hung up on the like, this is how long it takes to get from planet to planet to planet. With the Orbots, they're like, no, we're like right there. These vehicles are fast enough that we're
totally fine. Well, and I don't think you saw this, but they actually have a like a transporter that at one point it's a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing, because they're like, oh no, it's an instant transporter. We can just leave from here. We'll be there in a second. Like, why haven't you been using that this entire time?
You lazy
Save
robots.
on fuel. What are you doing?
Lazy ass robots.
But yeah, so end of that first episode, everybody's kind of reunited. Everybody's pretty fine, right? They defeat holy crap, I forgot how they defeated the magnet monster. So they knock him out by putting him in like Saturn's rings. So he kind of turns into this weird like glass dragon thing. Yeah. And then they basically, so they form Mighty Orbots. They grab this thing by the tail, they swing it around, they drag it through space, they throw it into like a volcanic crater on a moon somewhere. They wasn't it a moon?
Yeah, it was a moon with a volcano.
Yeah, just volcanically active moon where nobody lived. They throw it in a volcano. They cap the fucking volcano with a giant like asteroid, and then haul ass out of there, and they blow the moon up.
Yeah. Yep.
Like this moon and whatever.
They're not fucking around.
They're not fucking around at all. This is the first episode. So whatever planetary, lunar effects this thing had on whatever it was flying around, fuck that. That ecosystem's all out of whack now.
Dead.
So, but that was pretty cool. They blew the whole thing up just to kill this magnet monster.
My favorite quote at the very end of this was Dia.
Yes.
She goes, "Shadow using rock and roll is nothing safe."
That was so good. She's just looking up at this thing. It's just such a throwaway one-liner.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, in the next one, I think it was in the second episode, were some of my favorite one-liners from the bots as they are all kind of working together. So you want to jump into that second one real quick? I know we're getting a little short on time, but I want to cover some of these. So
episode 2 is called The Wish World.
Yeah, and we mentioned this earlier with Ono. So
yeah,
go ahead.
And so this was sort of where you saw a little bit of a hint of this in the first episode, where one robot asks another, he goes, "What are you, a robot?" And I think Bort replies with the "I think."
Yeah.
And so you kind of see that there are moments where they question their being, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're kind of self-aware to the point that they can question their existence. Yeah.
And so in this episode, Ono really questions her existence and what her role is as a part of the team.
And her relationship with Rob, too.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they really kind of they get into this through the use of the villain, the shadow villain that's used in this, which is named Plasmus, who tricks Ono into thinking that he can change, or that he actually does change her on the Wish World. He changes her from a robot into a human.
Yeah, so it's her Little Mermaid moment.
And so this is, and this becomes a problem because she then is no longer a robot, so she can't, nothing's going to come out of her chest.
Hopefully, and if it does, it'll just kill her.
Yeah, in order for her to, put the key in the ignition to start the Mighty Orbots. Right. So she can't do it initially. Right. And so they have to employ some. They
kind of hamstring some lazy because earlier in the episode they start in like this nebulae where there's a lot of energy flying around and it kind of scrambles their circuits a little bit. So they go back to it to get enough energy to turn her back into a robot, basically, without this talisman that this Plasmus guy brings. Now the interesting thing was that Plasmus at this point. He's basically like, well, that didn't work, so I'm just going to turn into a giant gaseous rage monster, and I'm just going to crush the fully formed Mighty Orbots at this point. So they're like fighting up in space. He's, I don't know, 10 times bigger than Mighty Orbots, and he's just kicking the shit out of them. But at some point, so they disband. This is my favorite part. Do you remember this sequence?
There's a moment where the Mighty Orbots are flying like Superman style through the cosmos in front of them, and Plasmus is running. Like it shows him like booking it through space,
Just
like
sprinting.
he's landing on something and gaining track, like he's
He's
landing on a
Usain Bolton it.
surface and
Yep.
just booking it. Yeah.
Oh, and then but then what does he do?
Oh, he engulfs them.
Well, first
doesn't
it
he?
was real creepy because Mighty Orbots is prone, just flying on his belly like Superman. Plasmus is running up behind him, and then he just straight lands on him from behind and looks like he's just humping the shit out of this robot. And then yes, he kind of like engulfs him and becomes solid. But there's a crazy kind of sequence where the Orbots all split up and they all do their own kind of attack. So it's this ridiculously complicated series of events where they like cut a moon in half or cut an asteroid in half.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
this
like
is
okay,
great.
so I think it's Bort who's the shape changer. So he cuts this asteroid in half, and as he does it, he has the one-liner, "I love being a cut-up." All right, so that's groan number one. And then you call in Crunch, and what Crunch does, now you've got two halves of this asteroid, right? So Crunch hollows it out, so he hollows out each half, and he just says, "Yum,
Yeah.
rocks on a half shell."
Yup.
Groan number two. So at this
Yeah.
point, you got Tor that comes in, and he grabs basically both of these halves up, which are now just like a clamshell. And he says, "Two halves make a whole lot of trouble for you, Plasmus." And he collapses Plasmus within the hollow of this shell. It keeps going, guys. It gets worse.
Oh yeah, it gets worse.
Oh my god. And then one of the girls kind of seals him up inside this rock, and she says, "This should rock him to sleep." Oh my god. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all you got.
But it was pretty good for the most part. They didn't waste those one-liners too often. They used them right there. It's very concentrated, but for the most part, the rest of the episode it was fine.
Yeah, and they, I will say they had some the interesting exchange that happens at the end. That sort of serves as the impetus for this whole episode.
Yes.
Of Ono kind of questioning where she fits. It's resolved in a very lovely way towards the end, where Ono says, she goes, I thought that you didn't love me because I'm a robot. And Rob responds with, it doesn't matter if you're covered with skin or metal.
Yeah,
and
which is a little clunky, but it's nice.
Yeah, but immediately in my head, I was like, have humans progressed to that point where we're allowing robot and human unions? Like, what is happening?
I mean, we're almost there now, so probably.
Is this the slippery slope that everybody talks about? They're just like,
we're on it. We're sliding down that lubricated slope with 10W40. All right, you wanna pop onto episode 3 here real quick? Trapped on a prehistoric planet.
I was gonna. I mean,
not a whole. I mean, just some craziness that happens.
There's not a whole lot of stuff. Like they get stuck on a planet that has like dinosaurs on it and shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't super interesting. The enemy on this is named Metalis. Right. And I think the thing that struck me as being so crazy is that how bad the names were for this. Like there's a guy who's sort of he was just like a small kind of guy named Metalis that is able to control metal and stuff, and they're on a planet at some point called Evilon.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a stretch on this
one. They're trying to retrieve the Deflecton, and I was like, if there's another on thing on this, like I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. But I mean, this was a fun episode. I mean, but there wasn't anything that really stands out except for the fact that the galactic defense there is a threat that a asteroid is coming directly towards their base.
Right. Which Umbra sent there because the Deflectron's been destroyed. Yeah. Which is like their planet shield. Yeah.
Yes. And so this is weird and funny because in the Galactic Defense has known that this is coming towards their HQ for a significant amount of time. In fact, I think they even say 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And these people, you have to realize, have vehicles that are able to get from Earth to Saturn or Jupiter's rings, like in an incredibly short period of time. And so you would consider, I don't know, an evacuation plan.
Something.
These people, instead of evacuating, walk outside and stare up
Just
into
wait
the
for it to
sky
hit.
as the meteor is coming. It's almost as if they had resigned themselves to say, we are going down with this shit.
I think it was more like, we got Mighty Orbots. It doesn't matter that he's like 2 light years away.
No, they the mighty Orbots were not there at that exact moment.
Right.
They were waiting. There was the potential that the mighty Orbots could let them down in this.
Look, I will say
instance.
that for this episode, this was where I was like impressed with the narrative of it, because they didn't just they had to deal with all this other shit off world, and then they had to come back, prevent this thing from smashing into the earth, which they do, but they only succeed in doing it in like a Deep Impact style, where they actually split it into a bunch of different smaller chunks, and one of them actually takes out a dam, which they then have to fix that problem too, and they don't have the luxury of time at that point, so they just fix it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and they didn't have the luxury of throwing it into a volcano and then
blowing a planet up. Yeah. So that was actually kind of fun and kind of cool to see them actually have difficult choices they had to make. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the finale
I'm curious
real quick.
to know.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So basically, in episode 13, it is called Invasion of the Shadow Star. Now, if you remember, Shadow Star is Umbra's home base, which is the sun within a planet computer thing. The whole place is fucking weird. And I thought
his weird 5 eyes.
Yeah, weird 5 eyes and mouth, hologram mouth. I thought that maybe this one was gonna be kind of like planned, like a military invasion, like a fleet versus fleet kind of thing, a big all-out war. No, it actually starts off really strangely with Rob busy designing a bunch of things, and the Orbots don't know what's going on. And then Ono kind of hacks into his system and sees that he's developing new robot blueprints. So they think they're all about to be scrapped and they're all about to be replaced. So they've got this almost like suicidal kind of resignation. They're like, well, he's done with us. He's getting rid of us. We should probably at least be useful and do something for our creator before we go. So let's go take down Umbra. And I was just like, whoa, hold on. You just like by yourselves? So it's just the 6 of them. They go to Shadowstar. And this is where they do this stupid teleportation thing where they're just like, oh, we've got this teleporter. Let's just teleport to Shadowstar. Like, why the fuck didn't you do this before? So they leave Rob a note, like a hollow note. And they go to the Shadowstar. They immediately get overwhelmed. Because Umbra has this invasion fleet that's kind of prepped with all these shadow beasts. And they're on his turf now. So they're overwhelmed. They form Mighty Orbots, but Ono can't work all the controls by herself. She can't work them fast enough to actually like defend herself. So Mighty Orbots pretty much gets taken down fairly quickly. Meanwhile, Rob gets the note, and he's like, guys, I don't understand what you're doing. So he teleports himself there too. Long story short, both groups, so Rob and then the Mighty Orbots separately, kind of get lost within this maze of Umbra's mind. It's basically like being shrunken down to Ant-Man size and then wandering across like a computer motherboard, just like Tron. So it's like being stuck in a world that is a computer. So through a series of short circuits and strokes of luck, they end up being reunited so they can all kind of fight together. And they actually have a pretty cool way of taking out Umbra. Umbra has this machine that's called the Sun Smasher, I believe, and he's going to use it to obviously smash the Earth's sun, right? So that's his plan, and it's basically this hilariously long tube of basically just like a plexiglass tube that this ball of energy just shoots through, and so they fire it up. The Orbots go to the end of it, they cut it in half, and then they fire blast this thing back at Umbra. So I thought that was kind of cool. They blast it back at him, it blows the whole place up, Shadow Fortress is done. Almost the dying words of Umbra, he's kind of fading at this time. He's fading visually, and his voice is fading too. And he's like, you may have destroyed Shadow Fortress, you may have ruined my plans, but I will be back, and I will find you. And then he just kind of fades off into nothing. So you don't really know if he's dead or not, but it definitely serves as a good end to the first season and the series at whole. Then, not to leave you with a cliffhanger, the Orbots get back. Rob's like, what the fuck, guys? Like, what's going on? This was a suicide mission. What were you thinking? They were like, oh, well, we know you were trying to get rid of us because you were designing new robots. He's like, did you check the date on those blueprints? Apparently those were just like older designs, which is kind of a funny nod back to the brutes that we talked about at the beginning of the show. So it's kind of a cool nod back to like what the original creation was supposed to be. And instead, Rob's been working on a perfect birthday cake, which he delivers to the Orbots, and it says, happy birthday, Orbots. Roll credits. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's sweet at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it, guys. Mighty Orbots. Took you through pretty much the whole season right there. Yeah. Do you recommend this show?
I do recommend this. I really enjoyed this. I think the animation style, the narrative, the narration to keep you involved and moving in it And the personalities of the robots, especially the awkward sexual situations from Bo and Boo, and Ono, they definitely kept me interested and kept me watching. I will say this. I know with some of the shows that we have mentioned in the past, I've stated like I would definitely go back and I'd watch the rest of these. Well, I've actually been watching a lot of Prince of Tennis.
Yeah, I've been watching it too. It's a lot of fun.
I've watched a shit ton of Prince of Tennis lately. And I actually think that I would jump over and continue watching a bunch of Mighty Orbots.
Yeah, there's only you only have to watch like 7 or 8 more.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see why I would not finish out this series. Like it's very enjoyable. It's really good, and I'm curious to actually see where everything goes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I already told you, but
yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan of mecha stuff, then yeah, definitely check this one out. It's not really. It sounds like a knockoff, and it might look like a knockoff at first, but they do enough with it to make it interesting and to make it kind of stand on its own. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Plus, there's weird robot sex stuff. So hey, if that's your thing, check it out.
Get into it.
Speaking of get into it, what you got getting into for the next couple of weeks?
Oh man, I got some shows. I'll be performing in Washington D.C. On July 11th, 18th, the 25th, and August 1st. You can come out and check us out. I believe every show that I'm performing in is going to be at. I don't know why I'm looking at. Screwing up the time. I believe they're all at 7:30. They're all on Saturdays at 7:30 throughout the month of July. You can find tickets online at witdc.org, and it's a part of WIT's Washington Improv Theater's summer attack run, and so it'll be a good, enjoyable time.
Excellent.
So come and check that out, and you can find me on Instagram and the Twitters at Sean Paul Ellis.
Wonderful.
Dave, what are you up to, and where can I find you?
You can find me on Collider.com. That's pretty much it. That's all I got going on, because by the time you guys hear this episode, I will hopefully have survived Comic-Con. If not, this is in memoriam. But yeah, it should be fun. What a weird memoriam this would be. Mighty Orbots.
This is weird.
Well, hey, you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Turn my body into an Orbot.
Into an Orbot. Throw it into a volcano, cap it with an asteroid, and blow up the moon. That's how I want to go. So yeah, just hanging over at Collider.com. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up over there, a lot of cool content, and we will have a ton of Comic-Con content from there. So you guys head on over there right now as you're listening to this and check it out. See what we've been up to. As for me, you can.
I will.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say this just as props to Collider. It seems like any media news regarding television, movies, anything else, it always seems like these other outlets are just like, well, according to Collider.com, and I'm like, wow, like that's a pretty cool track.
Lately, we got a lot of good scoops. Credit to Frosty, Steve Weintraub, who we've had on this show before, our 25th episode for Thundercats.
Mm-hmm.
The guy is just tireless. You know, he doesn't stop working. So him, and then we got a really good team that we're Johnny on the spot with a lot of new stuff. So yeah, still working hard, still trying to do well over there. So yeah, come check us out and let us know that you heard about us on Saturday Morning Cartoons or vice versa, which would also be great.
Yeah.
You can also find me on Twitter at Dr. ClawMD. That's DrClawMD. If you're interested in finding out more about Saturday Morning Cartoons, you can do so at our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also check us out on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We've also got our Facebook page up too, so go on over there and give us a like and leave us a comment too. If you want to chat us up, give us some suggestions, let us know how you feel about Mighty Orbots and robot sex, email us, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. Also, if you guys...
We get a lot of emails that are just like, I'm pro-robot sex. Like, I'm not going to
I've been waiting. If you're pro or anti-robot sex, if you're waiting for the SCOTUS ruling on whether robot marriages are allowed, send us an email. I'll send you a button and a sticker and some fun stuff. Yeah, we just want to hear from you guys. That's all. So yeah, let us know how we're doing and give us some suggestions. That's pretty much it. If you like it, if you like the show, give us the thumbs up, give us the like, give us your ratings and reviews. It really does help out, especially when you download through iTunes and Stitcher to listen to us each and every week when we release these shows. I think that's pretty much it for me. Do you have anything else you want to leave the listeners with, buddy?
No.
Can we detach finally? It's been really awkward. Okay.
Can we? Okay, there we go.
Docking complete. Yes. Oh, good.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
So weird.
That's been that kind of show. This has been Mighty Orbots.
Yeah. Oh my god.
All right, we got nothing else. So
All right.
thank you for listening. We will see you next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons.